Hello Silver Wolves, it's Blackie and welcome back to the channel. Okay, this video is because of some feedback from you guys. I was asked by one of my Silver Wolves who's 72 years old and he's getting into being a Silver Wolf now and going out. And he's wanting to know about cutting tools. Which way should we go with cutting tools? What are my thoughts? Now I've talked about this in previous videos, but today we're going to focus strictly on toward the Silver Wolves. When it comes to cutting tools in woodcraft, there are various levels and it just depends on which way you're going to go. Now that sounds like a cop-out, but it's just being honest. Up north you may actually need an axe because you're trying to do overnights and you got to cut big timber down to do all-night fires if you're trying to do stuff in the winter. For more of a man-portable type deal, of what would I recommend for carrying out, getting a kit, and etc. There are two ways to look. One is a chopping tool of some kind. Now, I wouldn't, unless you're wanting to do serious big fires and you're up in Canada, Alaska, North Country or something, some sort of chopping tool like a hatchet, a tomahawk, or like I carry, a kukri, is a great camp tool because with it I can cut down brush, I can bust up firewood fairly easily without having to do a lot of stomping and putting it between trees and snapping it off. With this I can quick and easily just one or two chops and bust it down to size to put in a fire. I'm not trying to make pre-made lumber here. I'm just trying to get something to burn in the fireplace, or in the campfire I should say. So it's something I need to be able to come up and just bust limbs off, break it down, whatever. And a simple thing like this works very well. Now, if you don't have good hand strength, if you don't have good hand-eye coordination, I would not recommend getting a chopping tool. I'd recommend getting a saw instead. Saws in many ways are safer. Now, there are a couple of big names, but this is a silky saw. I've also had the Baco Laplander before and I still got it, still use it. And there's a couple of other ones out there on the market that are really good saws as well. You can pick the saw you need. Now these come in sizes from small all the way up to ridiculous, and that ridiculous one that's that big huge katana or whatever does a really good job at cutting down trees. So if you ain't got that good a coordination, these work on the pull cut. That means you put it and pull back towards you, and therefore it bites in well, and you don't have to have so much arm strength. You're using your back muscles for this, or just simply pushing down and leaning backwards, letting your body pull it. Either one. So this is a simple, easy solution, and it's very light. So if you have not that good a coordination to chop with, I'd recommend a saw instead. This will do all of those functions, and it's never a bad choice to have. As you can see, I have a saw. I carry it quite often. It depends on what we're doing. And if you're doing something a little more stealthy, absolutely go with the saw, because the saw is a whole lot quieter than any kind of chopping tool. That does the big job. The belt knife. The belt knife can range in size by what you're comfortable with. Now, I like my big WC Knives Blackbird. It's the perfect woodcraft, bushcraft tool for me with my experience. But I like a knife about that big. Okay. There are many people do not. And if you see a lot of European videos, which is a big part of the bushcraft, you're going to see a lot of Moras being used because Moras are a lot smaller, lighter, and these are classic bushcraft knives. And if what you're wanting to do is simple food prep, you know, getting ready for dinner, cutting up the potatoes, whatever, these are fantastic. If you're wanting to do light carving and stuff like that, these small knives are really, really good. They're narrow, so they turn well when you're doing carving and stuff. So if you want to do tri-sticks and things like we've talked about recently, a small, thinner knife may be the way to go. The bigger knife just sometimes I can leave my chopping kukri tool and use it to help me gather up a little bit of firewood, see? So it, in certain conditions, can replace these two to have as a quick, helps me do the basic bushcraft duties of camp building, fire building, etc. And then a small knife can be used as well, especially if you pair a small knife with a saw, works really, really well, because this will handle anything too big for this, and this will handle anything too small or to worry about with that. So that makes a good combination, and very light. Now this is a belt knife. It can be carried. This is my stitchgear.com 6-way sheath. I can carry this all kinds of ways, on my belt, on my hip, crossways my back, up here on gear, whatever. Use it for a dangler. Lots of ways to carry this. This knife and most of the Moors come with just a simple little plastic sheath, and this is a plastic sheath that I simply covered in leather myself, and then I put 2 on it to make a neck knife. Now around camp, doing a lot of chores like food prep and whatever, a neck knife is very handy because it's right here. You don't have to lay the knife down. You just keep it right here for using. Don't wear these and walk around though, you know, when you're hiking, because if you fall down, where the knife is, and these are just simple plastic sheaths. Even if the knife doesn't cut out of it, if you fall on it, that's against the sternum and everything else, and us old silver wools were a little brittle, so we don't want anything that could job us. So therefore, when you're going to go hiking or going to go take a walk, take it off your neck and stick it back in your haversack or something, okay? Now, speaking of the haversack, and yes, I still have a few haversacks left in this run. Down in the description, there's a thing for it. What you carry in your haversack is for the small detail work. So, the axe saw is the big coarse woodwork. The belt knife is the general camp work and etc. And in your haversack, you should have your backup knife. Now, since we're carrying it for detail work, and the fact that in case I lose my big knife for whatever reason, I want a backup knife. Well, it does more if I have a small knife that's very capable of doing things on its own, correct? Now, I carry a little bitty open nail in mine. Little bitty small open nail. These are thin blades. This back is 90 degrees, so it's a real good scraper of firewood, and etc. of fat lighter. And then it's a carbon steel blade on it. It's a little razor. Man, this thing does good work. But it can also be used for detailed carving, like tri-sticks, trap parts, stuff like that, because it does fit the hand well and it's thin. This is not a pry bar. This is a cutting tool. But it does good for that, and it does good for food prep, stuff like that, or something that my belt knife's a little too big and awkward for, something like this. At the same time, sometimes I change this out for a small knife that's kind of dedicated. This is a WC Knives Mini. And a lot of people, this may be better for you because it's got a nice big handle, it fits the hand, got a little bitty short blade. If you're wanting to do tri-sticks, detail carving, spoon carvings, other things like that, traps, stuff like that, this may be the better choice for you because it is a very capable knife. It's got a good 90-degree spine that's good for scratching, like I said, for doing the making shavings to do fires. It also works well with a ferro rod, and it's that detailed small blade that I can get up here and get real precise with for precise cuts. You may like this better than that small open nail or some small pocket knife, okay? It gives a more added value to have a knife that's very capable on its own. Now, how about something like a Mora Eldris, with that little bitty old short knife? Maybe that's more in your wheelhouse. But again, I'm going to be carrying this knife. This is a detail knife / backup knife. It needs to be something capable, something I can really use, not just a figurative thing. See, since I always have my belt knife with me, to me, I carry the open nail because it's a thin blade, and I may require something where my bushcraft knife, my Blackbird, is really too big for the job. That's when I bring that out. And then, of course, there's the last knife, the EDC, and that's going to be my Swiss Army knife. Now, I tote a Fieldmaster is what I carry, Victorinox Fieldmaster, and it's got all the blades and functions I got. But again, This little blade can function for detail work and even for food prep. In fact, how many times I whip this out in the kitchen to do something at the house rather than grabbing something else. And it's got a very small blade as well in here that I keep razor sharp. That's my little scalpel. In case I ever have to dig a fish hook out of me or something I've got to cut on me, it's going to be that blade. I can sterilize that blade quickly and be able to cut whatever it is out. No, I'm not planning on doing surgery. But if it's one of those things where it's got to be done so I can get out of here and get to help, that's the blade I want on me. It comes from years of being out there in the middle of nowhere where there ain't nobody to holler help to. You know what I mean? So, in conclusion, layer your knives. Be honest with yourself. Start at the most basic. What's going to be your EDC knife? For me, it's this Victorinox Fieldmaster. Whatever knife. If you like a sod buster, if you like a multi-tool, if you like a Barlow, if you like whatever, some tactical knife. As long as you're happy with it, that's all that's important. Don't just because Blackie recommends it. It's your knife. How does it work with your hand? But have that as your everyday pocket knife. That's base layer one. One step up is the knife you're going to carry in your haversack for your backup knife. Make it have a little more capability than your pocket knife. Like, for example, this little fixed blade right here. The fact that that opening, when you twist and lock it, becomes essentially a fixed blade. It won't fold, and therefore is safer than me using my Swiss Army knife. See? One step up from that, go to your belt knife. Belt knife or a crafting knife of some kind, depending on what stuff you're interested in. And then finally, do I want something to chop with or something to saw with? Either way to go with it. I recommend you get both because there are times the one's a better choice. And you'll just figure out that as time goes by. That is the layering of our cutting tools. And that's what really gives us the versatility, is layers. You're going to hear a lot of manufacturing stuff talk about a one and done knife. True. Were you to put my feet to the fire, I could survive with just the kukri, just my knife, any of these knives, I could survive with it, with my skill level. See? Because I know what the strengths and weaknesses of each one of those blades. Even if you stuck me out there and all I had was my Fieldmaster pocket knife Swiss Army. That's all I had. I can build a shelter with it. I can do traps with it. I can take care of myself with it. I realize all of its weaknesses and I play to its strengths. That comes with experience. So, find what you're needing. Be honest with yourself. I don't recommend when you're starting out you buy real big expensive stuff because you're going to go through a learning curve. And I would rather you accidentally damage a $30, $40 knife instead of accidentally damaging a $200 or $300 knife. Once you get the time and dirt time and experience in, you'll realize the knife you need and why, and be willing to pay that kind of money, because this is an investment, but it's going to last the rest of my life, and I've got the skills to make it worthwhile. This is an investment. See? This is a usable, great, disposable if I had to, sacrificable if I had to knife. And so those are the mindsets and layers that go into it. It's complex. It's kind of like checkers. 5 minutes I can teach you the rules, but being really good at it takes a few hundred games. Get out there and get some dirt time and play with the knives, and you will naturally find the knives that fit your hand well, the ones that you can do the things well. Practice doing tri-sticks, practice carving little simple tricks, and it'll teach you what you need to know. Hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. If you have, please hit that like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, guys, I'm Blackie wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.